3 reasons ham radio nets are dying. And this doesn't come from me. This comes from an article I found, which I pretty much agree with, so I wanted to read it to you guys today. Let's go. Today's video is sponsored by ham.live. Bring your net to the next level by using the free software at ham.live, available for all platforms. As you guys know, I really like poking through the Reddit, amateur radio subreddit on reddit.com, and I like to find articles that just kind of relate to amateur radio in general and have catchy titles and catchy topics that I think would make for a good video. So I've done videos in the past about nets. I've done videos in the past about the Maritime Mobile Net. I've done some videos in the past about some DMR nets and some All-Star nets, I think. And I ran across this article, and the title is what caught me. And it's titled 3 Reasons Why Nets Are Dying. And it was written 9 days ago at the time of this recording. So this is a fairly new article in early of 2025. And I appreciate this original poster, 3 condition 5113. Triple L condition, maybe? I don't know. Anyway, he doesn't give his call sign, which is cool. This is an interesting article, and I wanted to read it to you guys and see what you thought about it. Okay, so I know some people that really like nets. I think nets can be overbearing. I think the Maritime Mobile Net, those guys think they own the frequency at 14.300. They don't, in my opinion. I understand what they're trying to do, and I support what they're trying to do, but I think that they need to be a little bit more understanding that they don't own the frequency any more than anybody else does. I think overall they are good. We're going to talk about Worked-All State nets. He mentions that in this article here. We're going to talk about that here in a second, and we're going to talk about digital nets. And I've mentioned those before in some of my most recent DMR videos. So let's take a look at this and see what he's got to say here. He starts out, I have been an operator for 18 months or so. So this is a new ham. And quite frankly, I'm glad. That's one of the things that makes this article valid, in my opinion, because he's a new ham coming into the hobby, less than 2 years, and he's already got an experience with and an opinion about nets. So I think this is good. We're always spouting how we want to get new people interested in the hobby. Good. I'm glad to hear what this guy has to say. So you aren't getting a seasoned operator's opinion here. That's fine. However, I can read rooms and situations all right, and there's this common thread I see about nets being low on numbers. A friend of mine tried to start a net in our mid-sized city recently, and it flopped in about 6 months. I had the opportunity to attend all nets around the country, and as a result of working as a truck driver, I've been on nets across bands and modes. Here are 3 reasons why I think they're dying. Number 1, many do not keep up with the changes. Digital modes are becoming increasingly popular, not just among the younger crowd, but even among the older crowd. I would agree with that, and I think the one reason digital modes are popular with the older crowd is some of the older crowd, when you kind of get really high in numbers of years young. That's how my pastor used to say it. How many years young are you? Instead of years old. So sometimes when ham radio operators get old enough, they have to go into assisted living facilities or something like that. Well, you can't obviously put up towers or antennas or even outside antennas in assisted living facilities. And in fact, Flex Radio and I have had conversations a couple of times about how a lot of Flex Radio owners or a lot of people in assisted living have traded in their towers and their ICOMs or their Kenwoods for Flex Radios because they have a Flex Radio set up somewhere remotely so they can use their Maestro in the assisted living or just their laptop and get onto an HF and with a good antenna, maybe an amplifier, and work HF like they're used to doing. So that's a good thing. Digital voice modes are another thing because you can take a hotspot into your assisted living home or your community home, something like that, and you can get onto DMR, System Fusion. Now you can get on M17, D-Star, and all these kind of nets. So I think this is a good thing. This is a good way to get people, to keep people alive in the hobby, even though they can't physically put up towers anymore. He goes on to say, I'm seeing a lot more nets that are supporting connectivity across various digital modes. That's something I personally don't like, but I understand why it's there. Furthermore, the use of various hotspots is also becoming increasingly popular. Simply put, if you don't have various ways for people to check in your net, that's a big reason why it may be dying. Now, okay, so 2 thoughts on that. So he's got three key points here. I'm going to discuss all 3 of them. I'll link this article below. You guys can go check that out. I think there is a place for a localized net. I think there's a very good place for a localized net. If you have a repeater in your ham radio club and you do a 2 meter or a 440 net every week, I think that's a good thing. And it doesn't have, it's just analog. It doesn't have Echolink or All-Star, but you have 10 to 15 to 30 or 40 people checking into it every week. I think that's a very good thing. I have mentioned before our Texas DMR net, which only exists on our C bridge, our 5 or 6 or 7 C bridges throughout the state of Texas, is not really piped out to the internet over long distances. It basically remains in Texas. There are some repeaters in other states that carry our Texas statewide talk group, but it's not piped out to all over the world over Brandmeister or anything like that. So that is a localized net. It's local to the state of Texas. We will have anywhere from 30 to 60 check-ins every Wednesday night at 7:30 p.m. Central Time to that net. So I would say that net's still alive. Now, if you think about all the ham radio operators in the state of Texas, 30 to 60 is not a huge number, but we're not talking about 5 people. I've checked into nets before where it's only been 3 or 4 people. There's a local club net here on their 440 machine every Tuesday night, I think it is, and they have about 5, maybe 6 people check in every night, or every week, I should say. So that, and they enjoy doing it, and there's people on there, and they get on there, and they talk about stuff going on in the area, and if they enjoy it, then they should keep doing it. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? So, but the DMR net, 30, 40, 50 people sometimes up to 60 people every week. If you have a local 2-meter net that's not piped out over All-Star, that's a good thing. But if you're seeing those numbers start to dwindle, you might want to look at somehow bringing in more people, unless your net is specifically for a local area like our Texas statewide DMR net is for. His second point, number 2, says, does anyone even know about your net? Along with all of these various modes for people to connect to your net, if those who lead your net live in a small bubble, then it's unlikely people will even find out about your net. If the leaders are not on the net and not constantly on the bands having quality conversations, then letting total strangers know where they can find them every Monday at 8 p.m. or whatever time it is, then how would anyone know about your net? If the only people you tell are the people in your grandson's baseball game, then you should expect pretty small numbers. That's okay. That's fair. Earlier today, I ran across a YouTube video of someone just showing an extremely nice shack with all of his equipment, but the only thing he said over the microphone was information about his net. I've never attended that net, but I give him a lot of credit for reaching far and wide to invite people. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, does anyone even know about your net? So advertise it. Advertise your net at your local ham radio club, advertise it on your QRZ page, advertise it on your Facebook page or your Facebook account, or in a Facebook group, or heck, put it on Reddit. I'm reading this article on Reddit right now. If you want people to check into your net, put it on Reddit. See what happens with that. Yeah, if you want your net to grow, then advertising it is obviously a good choice. Now, one way to get your net to grow, in my opinion, is to use ham.live. Ham.live is a sponsor of today's video. You can go to the website, just type in ham.live from any browser. It works for Mac OS, Windows, Linux, your iPhone, your Android phone, pretty much any platform. It is a free service on the web, ham.live. It's similar to NetLogger, but with a lot more features. There's recently been added a new chat platform where net check-ins can chat to each other while the net is going, so you can listen to the net and follow along with who's checking in from what location on the website ham.live. This is great for longer range nets, for wider range nets. If you have nets over several state lines or across the country, HF nets, for example, this is great to see where everyone's checking in from. You can look at someone and say, oh, that guy's coming in from Arizona, but I can't hear him on the air that I'm listening to. And then this guy over here in Florida, I hear him 5.7. So you kind of know where the propagation is, so you can kind of get to know your station a little bit better too. So check out ham.live and use it to grow your net the next time you have a net over the air. Thanks, ham.live, for supporting the channel. All right, reason number 3, he goes on here. He says, now for the more subjective reason. I read that as sensitive. It might be sensitive to some people. Now for the more subjective reason. Many people find nets a bit boring. And I know a lot of people in my circle of friends, YouTube community, and ham radio operators that this falls into the category for a lot of people. Again, I really think nets have their place, and I enjoy checking into them, but I don't put nets on my calendar and make it a point to check into an HF net every week. I do for some localized VHF nets, but not an HF net. He says, more often than not, I've been a visitor in more formal nets. Here's how it went. You spend a ton of time in line waiting for your turn finally to key up. You finally get to talk and introduce yourself. You say where you're from and how long you've had your ticket. Maybe you mention your rig and antenna. If you really want to talk If you really want to talk, you're going to update everyone on your last medical checkup and weather forecast. Last, you'll answer a topical question, then it's done. So often, there isn't much quality to the conversation. You aren't really getting to know much about people. You listen to a lot of people talk about minor details, their day, the weather, and it goes on to the next person. I get it. We have 30 people in line here. We can't all spend 15 minutes having a dialogue. The thing is, I'm much more likely to continue scanning the bands hunting for a guy calling CQ than actually talk. I'd rather talk family, sports, which I don't keep up with, music, tech, work, anything. I'd rather have a quality conversation than a quick, shallow statement, than 73 around. However, I will mention that there is a net on 40 meters that I pop into, but it's much less formal, and they really rag chew. So there is a thing as rag chew nets. There's things as rag chew nets. There's such a thing as worked all state nets. I think he talks about that here in a second. There's some other things around here. There are topical nets where you can talk about. Well, I mean, the Maritime Mobile Net is a good example. The Maritime Mobile Net is held for people at sea. Okay, and it's held for people for boats and ships at sea. And there's people that are not at sea that talk on that net, but they open that net up for taking check-ins from people at sea, maritime, and weather reports from people at sea. So that's a good thing. He's like, it's much less formal. They never have some topic question and try to grab interest. They literally just rag, chew, and hang out. I know a couple guys who join nets that talk about this. It's very informal. They don't like to call it a net. They like to call it an activity group. I know one guy that runs an activity group on 17 meters every morning, and that's kind of a fun thing to check into if 17 meters is up in your area. The net controller changes among those seasoned operators as people come in and out. The operators seem to love each other like family. They will lightheartedly pick on one another and laugh throughout the net. It feels so much more than a daily group conversation at 8 a.m. that does a, quote, net. They also have a prior service in common, military, paramilitary, etc., with each other. So I guess that may help the net to be more sticky. Nevertheless, it's one of the things I enjoyed about getting my ticket. And here's his 3 suggestions for wanting your net to come alive again. Make it sticky. Have some sort of commonality amongst operators besides amateur radio. Maybe it's hunting, military service, sports, something that brings people in, something that makes an operator want to keep coming back. I have thought about creating an all-star net for overlanders. And I don't think that was my opinion. I think that was one of your opinions. I think we were talking about all-star, or maybe we were talking about overlanding at some point in time, and someone had mentioned that we should start a net over all-star for overlanding so that people from all over the country can get into net because it's over all-star over the internet. The RV Radio Network, which I was a member last year. I think I let my membership lapse. I haven't done anything with them in a while. If you just Google RV Radio Net, rvradionetwork.com or something like that. It's the RV Radio Club. It's a club. It's a ham radio club you can buy into for a nominal amount. They have an all-star net once. I think it's once a week. It might be once every other week. It might even be once a month. It's pretty regular, but it's revolved around the RV community. If you have an RV and you enjoy hanging out with other RV people, that's what their net is about. I've checked into it a couple times, although it's been a little while since I've done that. There's the Ulyss repeater, which is 442.900. Every time the weather gets bad, I've mentioned this before, every time the weather gets bad, a couple of guys will get on there and they'll say, hey, we're running an informal net. There's no one that's net control. They get on the repeater and they talk. They're like, hey, I'm at home, I'm in Ulyss, or I get on there and say, I'm in Grapevine. Here's the temperatures here. We all have power. There's been a lot of rain, or there's maybe a tornado watch or tornado warning in the area, or there may be these really cold temperatures we've had in Texas throughout February of 2025. It was like 15 degrees one morning. So I got on the repeater. I started talking to guys. I'm like, hey, the power's up. The sun's out shining. It's 15 degrees. I don't have any busted pipes or anything. Don't really see any damage in the neighborhood. How's everyone doing? And it's very informal. So something that's localized like that is a very good idea. But he has a good point here with bringing up a topic about your net. So again, I've talked about doing some overlanding nets over All-Star. We'll see what the future brings on that. Extend your reach. Put in the effort to reach as far and wide as you can go. HF, digital modes, IRLP, linked repeaters, etc. Try to pick up more and more people who may be attracted to your flavor of sticky, to whatever the topic is you're talking about. There are hunters all around the globe. Folks who have served their country are all around the globe. I bet they'd love to talk about their experiences with you. Again, I don't think there's anything wrong with a localized net that's meant for a small area. He's talking about extending all nets to the world throughout HF, digital modes, and whatnot. I think there's a place for that, but I think if every net is a worldwide net, it'll be less. I think that'll also be less interesting. I enjoy the localized Texas DMR net. I enjoy the localized informal nets we have on some VHF and UHF repeaters in this area. So decide what you want to do and go from there. But it's not a bad idea to try to reach out a little bit farther if you want to do that. Make rag chewing great again. To some extent, let it flow. Of course, let everyone try to get their chance to speak, but let it flow. Have a break in the conversation for anyone to check in and join the circle. Encourage everyone to pick up the mic slowly. Provide a net where folks can do more relaxing around table rad chewing than merely waiting in line to say 8 to 12 sentences before saying 73. So that is good. That's good advice. If you have a net that's focused around rag chewing, I think that's great. And I know a couple of those activity groups I was talking about earlier, those are focused around rag chewing. You can absolutely have rag chewing nets, and that is a good thing to have as well. So it depends on what type of net. I don't think they all should be rag chewing, but I don't think they all should be check-in nets either. I used to, back when I was doing net control for the DMR net, I used to try to get people to talk, and everyone would be no comment, no comment, no comment, no. And we'd have 30, 40, 50 check-ins. No one had anything. We might have 2 comments, okay? I would try to say something locally. I was like, hey, next month there's this local ham fest. We're going to go and blah, 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 that kind of thing. Or, it's February, so Hamcation's coming up, something like that. But there's not many people that wanted to talk. Everyone just wanted to check in and use the repeater and move on. And that's okay. That's okay. But feel your audience out. If people want to talk, let them. If they don't want to talk, they shouldn't be required to. So I see what he's saying here, and that is a good point as well. All right, I talked a minute ago about WASnets, worked all states, and this is from a commenter. I was thinking it was the original poster. It's not. This is from a commenter right here. Okay, and he says, I would say the main problem with nets, as you explained, is most are rote and predictable. There are 3 kinds of nets. Worked all states nets, basically a roundtable to give operators a scheduled block of time to work someone in a different state. So I've checked into these nets before, and I'm in Texas, and I might say, it'll be my turn to check in and say, hey, I'm in Texas. In order to do my worked all state certificate, you have to work an operator in every state, and maybe I'm missing Rhode Island or Iowa or Washington State or something like that. And I'll say that. I'll say, look, I'm in Texas. I need to work someone in Iowa today to get closer to my worked all states. And they're like, okay, saying the net control is writing down where everyone is, hopefully with ham.live. But they're writing down where everyone is. And so when someone from Iowa comes around and checks in, they'll make, hey, okay, you're in Iowa. Jason, KC5HWB, he needed to work you. Jason, can you call this guy? And I'll call him. And if he can hear me, he'll come back to me. We'll have a short 3 to 5 minute conversation, and I'll be able to put him in my log as worked a station in Iowa, and I get closer to that worked all states certificate that a lot of people like to work. MCOM nets, a net to verify your equipment is functioning and that you practice some sort of basic skill. This is what POTA is about. I don't even care about MCOM nets, really. There is an MCOM net, I think, once a month here for the Tarrant Racies folks on the 146.94 repeater. It's been a while since I've checked into that. They just basically, it's the local Racies group for the Fort Worth, Tarrant County's the Fort Worth city of Fort Worth area and surrounding cities. So they do a monthly, I think it's monthly, check-in net on their repeater, which is their main repeater when storms come through the area. And that's a good thing to have as well, just to make sure all your equipment is working. But going out and setting up a portable operation for POTA, I think, is relates a lot more to MCOM to set up a portable station in a park with a portable antenna than it does to work from home. That's my opinion. Communal nets. A net is basically have a topic or two that permits a roundtable discussion. That's what he's saying about, the original poster was saying about sticky nets. And then he goes on to say some other stuff here. This guy, my favorite net is the WM9W Nightcrawler net. It's got some all-star stuff in there, 224.450. That's cool in Chicago. So a lot of good comments here. So what do you guys think? Do you enjoy checking into nets? Do you have a local net you check into? Do you have an HF net? The 10 meters has been up a lot lately, and I haven't been on the 1010 net in a while. I haven't done many nets in a while at all, realistically, but I should look around to getting on that 1010 net again, because that was always a fun 10-meter net. You have to have a 1010 number to get on that net to be checked in, counted you're checked in, but it's easy to get a number. All you do is check in one time to get a number, I think. There's a lot of really good nets out there, and let me know if you like the more localized net. If you don't like nets at all, put a comment below. I'd still like to know. If you like the more localized VHF, UHF stuff, or if you like the digital voice modes like D-Star, DMR, or even All-Star, which is analog over the internet, like Echolink and All-Star, or if you like HF nets, let me know which ones you like the best. Put a list of them in the comments, or mention one or two of them in the comments. And thanks for watching today.